Welcome to Journey to Justice. I'm Eiko Kosasa, your host for this program. Today is the second half of a two-part interview with Toni Bissen, Executive Director of Pu'a Foundation and its project in the Women's Community Correctional Facilities. Let's listen in.
Taking this perspective of this larger vision and aspiration to create a place of healing, a pu'uhonua, and having a framework of trauma-informed, and then systematizing also from a holistic perspective, incorporating this notion of mind, body, spirit, place, and systematizing and operationalizing it even more. And we call it creating a space for healing. And we use the acronym SPACE as looking at staff, programs, administration, community, and environment. So there's been a lot of thought and a lot of developmental evaluation and a lot of activities in what we've done together. It was definitely a team approach in that particular project.
So you were part of, like, with the warden and other people to conceive of this?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's very important to bring in community. There's this notion of, the government has the solution and the responsibility to take care of our public safety issues and running our prisons and, the incarceration population. It's not our job, it's their job.
Yeah.
And that's incorrect because it's all our jobs. And ineffective, it is unrealistic to think that government alone can figure out issues like public safety, like the issues related to incarceration. So the warden of the Women's Community Correctional Center does a lot of community building and a lot of outreach. They approached us and they said, we want community to be involved in this kind of initiative. So I was part of a leadership team and an implementation team. Actually, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs funded this initiative, and it really came out, it was a partnership with the Department of Public Safety, the University of Hawaii, the Department of Health. We were kind of a team member from community, and it was really a public-private partnership, and a team was created to think about how we could, implement something like trauma-informed care. So that particular project probably started off late 2008, 2009, and it went for a few years, and it continues, and it's growing, and it's more of an ability to have community engaged in being part of the solution and taking care of our community, our forensic community.
But I can see that with the trauma is the way to help make this place a place of healing. If not, trauma is just this individual thing only, instead of looking at the whole facility can be that. I mean, that's very inspiring.
Well, I think, Warden Mark Patterson is a wonderful leader. He's an inspirational leader, and really his vision and what his calling is he really thought, with all of his experience in public safety, and starting from the ground up, up until he achieved the level of where he was administration and a warden, he really learned a lot. And he thought to himself, if he had to be the one to look at being part of a solution, especially when he was assigned to the Women's Community Correctional Center, there weren't too many security issues, but this was a place where women were, and because of the research that we did, there is a tremendously high percentage of women who experience trauma that really have been the underlying causes in their journey to prison. And so recognizing that and trying to create solutions, and this vision of having a pu'uhonua, which is an ancient, it's how we ran in traditional times. There were places during wartime that existed where you could get sanctuary and you could be, removed from the community, and have a timeout, if you will, and then re-enter community.
Yeah.
So we're taking Ike Hawai'i, or our traditional knowledge, and bringing that into contemporary times. And there's a lot of information, or there's a lot of different kinds of initiatives now that are, can prison be a place of healing? Can pu'onua, the concept of pu'onua, be utilized in the criminal justice system now? So there's some legislation just recently being passed, and some discussions at the legislature right now. Ted Sakai, who's the department head of PSD, and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs has really developed some initiatives to look at this notion of how pu'onua could be, in contemporary times, useful alternatives. So the initiative that we've been doing really has lended itself to a greater initiative moving forward. So things like community building and partnerships, working together to be part of the solution, looking at different kinds of models is something that really came out of some of our work that we did at the Women's Community Correctional Center.
But I know you go there, do you go there every week, or you on a regular basis? So you run some, what do? You run programs?
Yeah, that's funny. It's funny, I guess, again, it's, there is, what the program that the foundation runs, it's called Huliao. It's and working in, it's called Huliao Transformation and Trauma-Informed Care work. And so as part of that project, and starting on the leadership team of the Trauma-Informed Care Initiative at WCC, it has expanded into doing many kinds of things that are facilitative in nature, community building. So some of the initiatives that I'm involved with happen to be activities, bringing community resources into the Women's Community Correctional Center, and I'll give you an example. There's a Hawaiian cultural series that we're part of that brings in different kinds of experts, if you will, that teach certain kinds of things that may be helpful at understanding perhaps cultural interventions, and not necessarily based on exclusively for Native Hawaiians, but just cultural knowledge that might be helpful in one's journey of transformation. And so we bring in resources into the facility every week, and we have, it's a volunteer program that if women want to participate, they can. And so we have classes, and we hold different kinds of activities. So we're part of that organizing leadership team and the community building facility to bring resources in. Also, the foundation has provided some support with an initiative there, which is the creative writing course at the facility, and that's called Prison Monologues. So the Pu'a Foundation, as a program of the Pu'a Foundation, it's in its trauma work, in its Huliao work, we also support that initiative as well. And there's still a lot more work that we're doing in terms of different kinds of activities or different kinds of community resources that we could bring into the facility, the Women's Community Correctional Center facility, that is transforming, that are different kinds of activities that are aligned with this notion of a pu'onua. Okay, so the premise is creating pu'onua, creating places of healing. What kind of things go on in a pu'onua? So some of the things that, the vision of the facility itself, there's a lot of ongoing programs and activities there. So just enhancing currently what's there is something that the foundation wants to do. There's this one initiative that looks at lo'i and hula and different kinds of agricultural plants and that kind of thing, and whether or not those kinds of things, chanting, those kinds of resources, and bringing community experts to share their knowledge and to have experiential kinds of activities, whether that has any kind of effect on a person's healing journey that occurs at the facility. So so we're part of really kind of bringing in resources or helping along with a larger team.
I know part of your foundation has the educational aspect, right? With the
Yes,
publishing of
yes.
Keanu Sai's book.
Right. We have another program that's kind of tied into our work at the facility, and that's our Hawaiian Historical Protection Project.
Okay.
And what that program is under the foundation, that has to do with developing community educational resources that really can help our community reconcile our past to the present so we can build a better future, and how we can look at community healing and well-being to know our past. So we commissioned, at the foundation, we commissioned some experts to help develop some of these materials. In 2011, we came out with a book that was authored by Dr. Keanu Sai, and it's called Ua Ke'ea, Sovereignty Endures. And it's a history textbook along with an educational DVD that really tells the story from a political and legal background based on Dr. Sai's dissertation about what our history was and what our framework was. And what we've been providing was that, so we have this resource for the community, and it's been in use for the last year and a half or so, and doing quite well, I think. And it's being used by teachers at different levels, from high school through college.
I use that.
Yeah, thank you.
But on Saturday, did he mention that you've brought him to the women's facility to
Yes,
give talks?
thank you. And the tie-in is, we have two of our main programs has to do with, one, working in transformation, Juliela's transformation.
Okay.
And right now our focus is working with the forensic community. And so trauma-informed care and those initiatives. But our Hawaiian Historical Protection Project and our community resources that we've developed, along with our DVD, that's for everyone to utilize. But again, the foundation is really working to service community. And so we're not in the business of creating textbooks, history books. I mean, unless it has a purpose, and in this case, we want to bring about some kind of healing to be able to service our community and give resources so that it can be part of that journey. So after one of the reasons why we developed these resources is to see whether or not it does in fact have any kind of impact, positive change, positive internal transformative change for anyone, me, you, anyone. Yeah. So that was our hope, that was our intention. So we took the DVD and with Keanu and our resources, and we started the cultural series. That was our first. That was our first 6 weeks of the cultural series, which happened last year. And so what happened was, we weren't going in, and this is 100% volunteer. And so women signed up if they wanted to participate, and we had classes that utilized this material, the book and the DVD, and there was a lot of discussion. And how Dr. Sai utilized the material was really, can we learn about our ali'i, our families who have come before us, and how under certain struggles, how did they live through their challenges? And how can we learn about those things? And he utilized history, he utilized these resources, and compared that to the journey of what some of these women are experiencing. But what the preliminary data that we found, because we're evaluating some of this stuff to see whether or not it is helpful. And in addition to utilizing our Ua Ke'ea resources, we also brought in another initiative called Ike Kuoko'a, and partnering with PSD Library Services, partnering with Awaia'ulu, which is another nonprofit organization. Their initiative had to do with transcribing Hawaiian newspapers that really were in existence from 1834 to 1946. So there was a tremendous amount of need and a large volunteer-based program to look for transcribers to transcribe all of this for access for everyone in the community through the internet. So in addition to Ua Keia, and in addition to Ike Kuoko'a, our women at the facility learned some history, learned from examples of our RLE, and then connected with being able to transcribe and participate in an experiential activity that connects us back to the stories of the kupuna. And to what extent was that experience over, and our Ike Kuoko'a, or our transcription project, continues to today. Learning our history and then doing an experiential activity that links us back directly to the kupuna. What, if anything, is there? Is it beneficial? Is it helpful? Is it not helpful? Does it mean nothing? What can we learn from that? The preliminary data that we gathered, and again, this is a partnership. This is not us going in and telling people what to do, especially our women, but it was a partnership to say, you know, we have some ideas that this might be helpful in a cultural lecture series. What do you guys think? They say, okay, well, we'll try it. So together, building an evaluative kind of piece by asking them what they thought. First experiencing the workbook with Uamau, and then experiencing typing and transcribing. What, if anything, is happening with you? Again, and overlaying that with a particular activity in a facility that has the aspiration to be a place of healing, a pu'uhonua, and understanding this notion of being trauma-informed. If we look at the kind of historical things that have happened here in Hawaii, you could kind of characterize some of this stuff as trauma.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to call it historical trauma because there's so much there's so much to learn about that, and there's so much to it. But there has been certain events that has happened historically that really have had profound effects. And for us as a community to understand that, and then again reconcile the past to the present so we can build a better future, we said, well, what a perfect place to be able to learn to see whether or not these kinds of resources and activities could be helpful, not only for our forensic community, but perhaps our community at large, in schools, through churches, and other kinds of things. So again, with this overall aspirations from the foundation, feeding, nourishing, and strengthening, and really with an aspiration of community healing and well-being and thriving as a community, and just really kind of, you know, having this notion of reconciling the past to the present so we can build a better future. We thought in the partnership of our development programmatically is creating place of healing, working with the forensic community, utilizing some of the community educational resources and our community partners to see whether or not this makes a difference in the lives of some of our women who have themselves, a large percentage, experienced personal trauma that has contributed to their journey at the facility. So to see whether or not we could be part of some initiatives that could be part of a solution is what we really wanted to be part of. And being an organization, and a small organization at that, to try to facilitate, you know, some of this work and some of these initiatives.
It's amazing because the women, they can already give back to the community by doing the transcribing. You know?
Absolutely.
It's not like they have to leave the facility, wait years, if even that, right? But they can do it right there by doing this because it's giving back to the greater community.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
And you know, the preliminary indication that we've had, and because I happen to believe that, you know, my cousin's there. I mean, this is not an us and them. Yeah. I happen to dance for a halau. And if we put up our halau and the halau at the facility and we're all wearing the same costumes, you couldn't really tell who's in my halau and who's in the halau at the WCCC. Because the point there being that we're more alike than different, and it's not an us and them, it's all us.
Yeah.
It's our families, it's our women, and you know, I have a few cousins, I have Ohana there, and it's just public awareness that we hope to shed some light on, that when you think of the incarceration population, it really is not us and them. I mean, so it is very important for all of us to work together. So when we approach some of the women who volunteer to be part of these programs, I shared that our hope is this is a place of healing. It's a puhonua. Tell us what you think about that. What the journey of trauma-informed care has been. The activities that we did in trauma-informed care, at every point of product development, and the products that came out of that initiative had to do with trauma screening and assessment and trauma training. And so how we developed the screening and assessment piece really was a community building experience. So we had people from administration, people from the community, we had a work line and a focus group of women, and we developed these tools together and we vetted it through. It's a lot more time consuming, but it is very, very thoughtful and purposeful when we're trying to develop solutions and build products together and buy-in. And also we would vet this through the staff level, ACOs. So the point there being that now we're doing different work, utilizing Uamau Ke'ia, utilizing Ike Kokoa, and we're working together and, okay, does this have any impact? Does it service you in your journey here? If so, why? If not, why not? And we're also assisting with some other community organizations and trying to transform the AINA at WCCC and doing things like building hula mounds and clearing the land and growing different kinds of plants, opening up lo'i. And again, the same thing there, we're part of a team to be able to see whether or not that has any kind of impact. If it does, why? If not, why not? So we've been doing, trying to evaluate and talk story and see whether or not, shoulder to shoulder while we're all doing this, how that works. I'll tell you this real quick story.
Yeah, this is powerful.
So last weekend, 2 weeks ago, so we go in to clear the land and to work the lo'i with a work line of about 20 women. And we have a wonderful dedicated staff who is in charge of the women. Mm-hmm. And we have experts who come in and talk about lo'i. And so we all go in and we work together. And one of the women, at the time I went in 2 weeks ago, one of the women said, okay, today we're gonna learn how to weed whack. I'm like, okay, so Toni, you want to weed whack? I'm like, shoot. So she gives me, and I've never weed whacked before. I have never been, this is a big machine, weed whacking. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, so she taught me how, one of the inmates there, she taught me, and we're all part of a work line to clear the land so we can develop more about building lo'i, clearing some of the pond area. So we're working really hard. This is manual labor. Yikes. So we're weed whacking, and there's a field of us trying to weed whack together. And she taught me how to do it, and then we all kind of talked about after. So the kumu, in this case, the person who's coming in from the community is Winston Kong from Windward Community College, and he's helping to, do you know Winston? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Does he do film?
He does counseling.
Counseling, okay, yeah.
So, and his passion is also lo'i, because he does other community kinds of lo'i, mala and gardens and things like that. So he's been at the facility for a long time. So he comes in and he teaches us all about this, and then we actually do the work, and then a colleague of mine, Pat Uchigaki Uchi, and I stay on, we have lunch, we talk a little bit about what's being experienced, and encouraging them to share, not only from the staff perspective, from the women, and what is going on. Like, it was profound for me to weed whack. And there's all of us, we're all working together. That there was something transforming for me on so many levels. And I shared that with the girls, and then they start sharing about what this means to them. It's not just cleaning, it's much deeper than that. And so providing an opportunity, because this doesn't just happen in a prison. It just doesn't happen. To be able to have those kinds of experiences and to bring in community engagement, have the staff engaged. I mean, these are all kinds of activities that we hope are beneficial and aligned with creating places of healing, creating pu'onua. Can these activities really make a difference in our women and then with their families once they transition? So yeah, we're trying to be a part of the solution, facilitate and help and service. And
to me, what's key I mean, there's so many things that are key, but when you're saying you had a discussion, it's like having thoughtful discussions.
Oh, absolutely.
Afterwards, because that's when everybody, gets connected and transformed. Like, oh,
absolutely,
we're doing the same thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I guess I get maybe as women, or things just don't happen. Things just don't happen. Like when you have a big party or big luau, it never just happened. There was so much work that was put in. Like around our table, we talk about who brings what to the luau kind of thing. Like what kind of gift can you bring? Or here in Hawaii is like potluck, right? What you gonna bring? Blah 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 blah. Because we all, and this is another thing at the Pu'a Foundation. It's all let's learn together, work together, and eat together. And so who brings what to the luau? Yeah. And so it's all about that. Yeah. And so whose gift? But again, planning a luau takes a tremendous amount of coordination. It takes a lot of resources. You have to have people that can poke squid and make lomi salmon and do all of this and pull it together. So applying that to the work at the Women's Community Correctional Center, who brings what to luau, we are actually learning together, working together, eating together, and then all aligned with trying to create a place of healing, or a pu'onua. So after we weed whack and after we're doing a lot of hard work, we're working shoulder to shoulder, side by side, and then we eat lunch together and we talk about like what's happening. Does it help? I'll just share another one. We happen to have other kinds of experiences in our cultural lecture series. A woman was saying that she's on another work line that cleans a cemetery and cleans ulupo, which is a heiau out in Kailua. Mm-hmm. And so she was also sharing that these kinds of activities are extremely profound. Yeah. And there's so much things that have been contemplative. But again, the point being, there has to be so much coordination and it has to be very strategic. And we cannot expect government to create these things. Community, public-private resources, all of us being really committed and dedicated to taking care of our women, our children. It's our community. So at the foundation, we're really about trying to facilitate like the big party planners or the big luau. Because it's all about food, like eating, food and fellowship, pu'a, So that's kind of how we're involved in some of these initiatives,